Mic check 1, 2. Good morning, everyone. I know we're a bit late, but good morning, everyone. It is a good morning, and I think your response should indicate that. So good morning. Thank you. Welcome to day 2 of the Public Service Week Forum, proudly hosted by the Tobago House of Assembly in celebration of Public Service Week 2025. At this time, I'm going to ask you to stand for the singing of the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, followed by the opening prayer by Bishop Sheldon Holder, Chairman of the Tobago Faith-Based Council. Bishop Holder.
Hallelujah. Pleasant morning to each and every one. Nobody answering. My duty this morning is to engage us in a time of prayer. And like in all things, as we just would have sung our national anthem together, we trust God that indeed every creed and race finds an equal place in this wonderful island of Trinidad and Tobago. Even as you celebrate today, this 2 days of activities, my duty here is to bring you not just an opening prayer, but a blessing. To do so, we are reminded in the book of Daniel, chapter 5, that Daniel, this man who was an administrator, selected to administrate, a Jewish man, a man that was held as a prisoner, but he was selected to administrate. And in his administration, in his responsibilities, the scripture has recorded that he had a spirit of excellence upon him. Because of this spirit of excellence, he was able to do his function and his duties well, to be able to approve or even reprove when it was needed. And so today, as I would pray, my prayer is directed towards you administrative leaders of the various facets here of Tobago, that indeed you would govern with strength, govern with that actual attitude of structure and straightness, that indeed when you would do and perform your duties will be done with a spirit of excellence. This is my context of my prayer today. Let's believe God together. Father, today we thank you for your grace. We know, God, Lord, that you do it all things well. And even, oh God, as we come together for this setting, whereby we might have different thoughts, different ideas, different, oh God, principles, and even have different ways. But Lord, as we come together in this setting, we ask that you, God, would cause our hearts to come in agreement, that as we govern this beautiful island of Tobago, the governance, oh God, would lead us into prosperity. Prosperity, oh God, would be one that is kept in honor. Lord, that as a people that we're going to be a happy people, one that is fulfilling your purpose and your will, one whereby we can indeed walk together, two agreeing together, being able to do great exploits. So God, as we begin this setting, as we take this time to communicate, and Lord, the information that will be outlaid, we ask your blessings. We ask your guidance. Let, oh God, the information that be communicated be received with good understanding. and Lord, be taken in the right context of things. And Lord, that this group of mighty leaders here on this island will be continue to lead us forward into greatness for your glory. These blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Holder. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Deputy Chief Secretary, Assemblyman Dr. Faith Brebner, Acting Chief Administrator, Mr. Carl Murray, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation, Mr. Corey Belfon, other administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly, Head of the Public Service Week Local Organizing Committee, Ms. Anne-Marie de Gazon, and other members, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, online viewers, welcome again to Day 2 of the Tobago Public Service Forum. I'm Davia Chambers, and I'll just take you through this morning's opening segment. It is a pleasure to have all of you here with us. Today is another day of meaningful dialogue and shared insights. As we gather here, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a moment to sincerely recognize the countless individuals across our public service whose daily efforts continue to shape, continue to support, and continue to strengthen Tobago. Give yourselves and all of Tobago's public servants, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. At this time, please help me to welcome Acting Chief Administrator, Mr. Carl Murray, to share opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Allow me to acknowledge the Deputy Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly and the Secretary with responsibility for the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, Assemblyman Dr. Faith Brebner. Other secretaries who may be present with us and assistant secretaries, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation, Mr. Corey Belfon, other administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly, Head of the Public Service Week Local Organizing Committee, Ms. Anne-Marie de Gazor, and other members, heads of departments of the various arms of the Tobago House of Assembly. Let me also acknowledge our guest speaker today, Dr. Prajapati Trivedi, special invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, and let me also include here public officers. I want to say the word public officers, online viewers, good morning. Indeed, the Public Service Week has become a main feature or a staple in the Tobago House of Assembly. And I want to take the opportunity, as I did yesterday, and I will do again this morning, to personally say Happy Public Service Week to all the public officers in the Tobago House of Assembly. I will always reiterate, and I will say it, that in my regard, every public officer matters. It is something that is very much overlooked, and very often the work that we do and the contributions that we make to the public sector, the delivery of goods and services that meets and sometimes are expected to surpass the expectations of a waiting public, whose livelihoods are dependent upon the very nature of our service. Many of these actions and these services go unnoticed by the very officers, many of whom I see before me this morning. But I indeed want to take the opportunity to thank you for your countless hours and years of commitment to the public service of the Tobago House of Assembly and delivering, despite the lack of resources, sometimes the rewards that sometimes do not seem to amount to much. But in spite of it all, we still have officers who I can say that are dedicated and committed. And I wish to thank you once again. I also want to take the opportunity to welcome you as well to day 2 of this public service forum. I believe that so far, and I'm almost willing to put my hand on the block that no public service week activities in Trinidad will compare to what we have done in the Tobago House of Assembly this week. I think we should put our hands together for that. It's an illustration of the commitment we believe as public officers we want to demonstrate, that shows our resilience despite tough times, that shows our continued dedication to our jobs and to ensuring that every single person who is dependent upon the Tobago House of Assembly for receiving some sort of service can receive it in a timely manner and can receive it with a sense of satisfaction. I want to particularly point to our session this morning, Beyond the CFR and Building an Effective, Accountable, and Citizen-Focused Public Sector. When I look at the team this morning, it says to me that there is somewhat a call to action. When we talk about the words beyond something, we are saying something has happened and then what? What's next? I hope this morning's discussions will evoke from us a sense of direction, a sense of commitment. We speak about results when we look at the team. We speak about accountability, whether we can justify that the way we are going about delivering our services meets the expectations, not only of the public that receives our service, but we are doing it in a manner that harmonizes with the laws and with the greater functions of accountability that we expect to meet. And obviously, focus, citizen focus. I think it's perhaps sad that over the years we have lost focus on exactly what a public officer means and what public service means. It means delivering to people. And regardless of what you see yourself this morning as, what function, what role, and the responsibilities you carry out, everything that we do is geared towards providing a service for someone, for improving the lives of someone or people. And I want us to never lose glimpse of that reality. It is what drives me every day. I wake up every day with the knowledge that whatever I am doing, someone is there depending on it in some way. For themselves, for their children, for their family. And we should never lose sight of that. And so I just want to briefly highlight the fact that we say CFR. I'm sure it is going to come up this morning in the discussions. But I just want to remind you, and I'm just going to take an excerpt from my address yesterday to introduce perhaps the forum this morning. See, in late August to early September 2024, all divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly participated in a Commonwealth Advanced Training Program in Government Performance Management. And what was central to this training was the introduction and the use of a commitment for results framework. And it says essentially what it is: a commitment for results. An approach that takes what are the strategic objectives of any organization and translates it into programs, into activities, into projects, into actions on the ground, and that are measurable. And so we are taking what we say we will do and translate it into a way that we can implement it, and not only just implement it, but it's going to be done and recorded in a way that others can see what we are doing. And what it means, public officers, this morning, with this approach, we are putting ourselves under the spotlight. And we are exposing ourselves now for Tobago and for the greater world to see exactly what we say we are doing and whether we are actually achieving it. And I'm just putting it simply in layman's terms. And so this framework, this tool is essentially a way that any organization could use to say and to demonstrate whether it is meeting its objectives. And demonstrate it and displaying it so all can see. And so at the same time that we were carrying out, or we were involved in this training activity with the CFR, the Tobago House of Assembly was completing its strategic development planning pathway. Not a technical term, but essentially a planning tool that can be used to help guide every division of the THA in planning programs, projects, activities that are essentially citizen-focused. Again, with the best interests of the people of Tobago. And so this strategic development planning pathway for Tobago will go or run from a period of 2025 to 2045 with its sub-team towards the greatest little island on the planet. And so while we were engaged in understanding the concept of a CFR and how it can be used to assist us with better planning, implementation, and reporting, the Tobago House of Assembly was completing what has now become its official development framework. Because as of May 14, 2025, the Executive Council has officially adopted the Strategic Development Planning Pathway, which we call the SDPP, as Tobago's official development framework. And not only have they adopted it as that, but they have also incorporated the CFR into the institutionalization of the Commonwealth Secretariat's government performance system. In other words, the Tobago House of Assembly has now adopted an approach to planning, implementation, reporting that incorporates both its strategic development planning framework and what is also known as the commitment for results. So what does that say? In adopting the CFR framework and incorporating it, we are aiming for greater public accountability and transparency in developing all our programs, projects, and activities throughout the Tobago House of Assembly. But not only that, the Tobago House of Assembly has also taken an added step in deciding that is accountability and transparency in government, guided by the Strategic Development Planning Pathway, guided by the CFR. It has taken an additional step in its intention to publish, as I said, all of these initiatives on an online platform. And as was elucidated by the Chief Secretary in the Chamber yesterday, this platform is ready to be launched perhaps by the end of the month. And so any and everyone can go onto this platform, look within a division, and see what is being planned, what is being implemented, and at the end or throughout time, see how it is unfolding and see whether you have performed. I believe it's a right step. Very important and a right step in ensuring that we are accountable for the resources that have been entrusted to us as public officers. But I believe in a public service that can deliver. I believe in the people in the public service in the Tobago House of Assembly who have and will continue to deliver. And I leave you therefore with this encouragement that we can deliver the best service that anyone in Tobago can ever expect and receive, because we are the best in the Tobago House of Assembly. And so I encourage you today, as we listen and as we engage in this forum, that we are bold enough to ask the questions: what are we doing? Are we getting it right? And what do we need to do to consistently improve? Because that is what it is. It's about improvement, and it's about increased delivery of a service I know that all of us have not only accepted as jobs, because many of us here The public service has now become our lifelong career. And I'm proud to say that. And I hope you are proud to say that as well. That I am a career public servant, a public officer. And if this is the place that I'm going to spend the rest of my days and my working life, I am going to make it matter. Not just for me, but I'm going to make it matter in the lives, because I am servicing my own people, the people of Tobago. I thank you very much for deciding to be a part of this forum this morning. I am confident that all that is expected of this session this morning will be realized, because we have the best people this morning in front of us to make it happen. Have a productive and enjoyable forum today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murray, for setting the tone with those impactful words. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we invite the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation to deliver greetings virtually, Mr. Corey Belfon.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to stand on the protocols that have already been established. It is truly a privilege to bring greetings on behalf of the Ministry of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence as we join with the Tobago House of Assembly to celebrate Public Service Week 2025. Under the timely and powerful theme, Excellence in Public Service Delivery for a Sustainable Future, an inspired adaptation of the United Nations theme, 5 years to 2030, Accelerating Public Service Delivery for a Sustainable Future. This observance is much more than just a ceremonial recognition. It is far from just pomp and flair. It is a celebration of our people, our nation's public officers, who hold the responsibility of shaping and delivering the services that touch every aspect of our lives. It is also a reaffirmation of the shared mission between the THA and the central government to advance service excellence, governance reform, and community well-being. I take today to commend the Tobago House of Assembly for its exemplary Public Service Week initiatives, from the Civic Education Quiz to the Public Service Innovation Challenge, the open houses, and the inspiring division-led community service projects. These activities reflect what it means to not only serve the people, but to do so with vision, purpose, and compassion for those who have to provide said service. As the ministry charged with leading public sector transformation, we are proud to stand as a committed partner in your journey. Our national mandate is rooted in the principles of good governance, digital inclusion, and performance accountability, which complements the THA's ongoing implementation of Development Agenda Priority D, which focuses on building an efficient, effective, and accountable public service. One of the most important and more recent milestones in that journey is the partnership between this ministry, the THA, and OPM CAST with regards to the implementation of the GPMS training program. This program was a collaborative initiative between the ministry, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and dedicated officers across Trinidad and Tobago. Of the 213 participants trained, 43 public officers from Tobago, representing the THA and the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services Tobago, were fully engaged in the program, which was held last year. Their contributions helped shape 45 commitments for results, a tangible outcome of the training that aligns performance with outcomes in a measurable and structured way. These CFRs are not just documents, as they lay the foundation for a framework of transformation. We are pleased to note that 92.4% of participants rated the training positively, and 96.2% confirmed it has enhanced their skills in performance management. This is proof that the seeds of change have not only been planted, but they are already bearing fruit, which will redound to the benefit of all of our citizens. And of course, none of these initiatives can succeed without our most valuable commodity, human capacity. The ministry continuously reiterates its commitments to investing in digital literacy, e-governance training, and performance management coaching to ensure all of our public officers are empowered to meet the evolving needs of those that we serve. Colleagues, Tobago is not simply keeping pace with national reform, it is helping to lead it. Your initiatives, your energy, and your dedication demonstrate what a 21st century public service should look like. Each one of you are living proof that the public service can be both vision-driven and people-focused. As we look ahead, let us be clear. Sustainable development, citizen trust, and service excellence do not happen by chance. It happens through deliberate strategy, committed leadership, and strong collaboration, a reflection of what we are seeing here today. To every public officer present, I urge you to remember that your work matters, your voice matters, and your continued commitment is the foundation of our nation's progress. On behalf of the Ministry of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence, I extend my sincere congratulations on all that has been achieved thus far and that which is yet to come. I look forward to even deeper partnerships between our ministry and the Tobago House of Assembly as we continue this journey together. Let us not merely manage change, let us lead it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belforn. As we move along, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to now invite to the lectern to deliver remarks the Deputy Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Assemblyman Dr. Faith Brebner. Put your hands together and welcome her to the lectern.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to recognize the secretaries and assistant secretaries in the midst. Allow me to also recognize the Chief Administrator, Mr. Carl Murray. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray, for chatting about the Tobago House of Assembly's framework which we will use to ensure that we do the kind of development that gets us to that grand vision of Tobago being the greatest little island on the planet. Allow me to also recognize the other administrators who are in the room. Allow me to recognize the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence. And I want to thank him as well for indicating the ministry's commitment to continually working with the Tobago House of Assembly, because it is that kind of collaboration that would truly ensure we get to our milestones. Other heads of public service in the Tobago House of Assembly, other members of staff, all of you lovely ladies and gentlemen who are in the audience, specially invited guests, those who are viewing online. It truly is an honor for me to stand here and speak on behalf of the Tobago House of Assembly as we come closer to the end of this week of public service activities. I agree with you, Mr. Murray, that what I've seen in Tobago, I am sure there is no other public service entity in Trinidad and Tobago that can rival what our public servants have done on this island. And again, I say to you, give yourselves a round of applause. I think that the theme is definitely fitting. Delivery of a sustainable future beyond CFR, building an effective, accountable, and probably most importantly, citizen-focused public sector. This wasn't just another week on the calendar. It wasn't just an opportunity for you to not do your regular daily work because you were participating in public service week activities. This has been our moment to reflect, to recognize, and to reset. What do I mean by that? We reflect on the quiet power of the public service, the way what you do every single day shapes lives, communities, and entire futures, often without fanfare. The administrator or the accounting executive who carries the weight of the division, the driver, the messenger, who ensures that we get what we need to get, usually without fanfare and usually without recognition. We recognize the grit, the creativity, and the heart that our public servants bring to the table every single day. From the division's perspective, I think, for example, of our social workers and our therapeutic counselors, our mediators, whose work can't really be published because of the nature of what they do. But they come and they give the best of themselves every single day. And of course, we renew our commitment, not just to doing the job, but to doing it very well, to doing it right every single time, and to doing it in a way that lasts generations. Sustainability is no longer a whisper about tomorrow. It's a declaration for today. It's the brave decision to choose legacy over convenience, to ask the very hard questions. And what are some of those questions? Are we leading with vision? And I'm asking them to myself as well. Are we building with purpose? Are we putting people? Are we putting the island? Are we putting the nation? Are we putting the planet first? As public servants, we are really more than just paper pushers. We are architects of trust, and we don't just deliver services, we shape lives. We change people's lives positively, and we do it with integrity, with intention, and with inclusion at its core. This week, and dare I say every single week, as we dive into these workshops, as we have the conversations that we've been having, as we have the open houses as we've been having in our divisions, I challenge us all to think a little differently. Question the norms. Lead with courage. And I say that as a politician who continually has to rely on the leadership of my administrators. And we encourage you to help guide us with courage. Let this be a space where innovation meets accountability and where our ideas are grounded in service. Let us embrace, please, Tobago, the technology that will allow all of our lives to be easier. I know in some instances that's a little difficult to accept, but the technology really is there to improve what we do and to make our lives easier. To every public servant across this island, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of the Chief Secretary and on behalf of the entire Executive Council of the Tobago House of Assembly, I say to you that you matter. Your voice matters. And your role in delivering sustainable development is critical. It is not just important, it is essential. So I say to you, let us all rise to the moment. And if each of you does the job that you have been hired to do, we can all truly get to that place where, as the Chief Secretary and my other colleagues, and most of you who've already accepted that that is our North Star, if each of you do what you are expected to do, as grand or as small as you think your duty is, we really would be able to get to that point, known as Tobago being the greatest little island on the planet. I thank you in advance for your job, for your work, for your effort in getting us to that milestone. I thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Secretary, Assemblyman Dr. Faith Brebner. Your remarks truly reinforce the importance of why we are even celebrating this week. And just a house announcement before we continue, please note the restrooms are located behind the red curtains. The male restroom is on your right and the female on your left. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to the screen before you, as a video will be shown highlighting Public Service Week 2025.
In the public service began as an agricultural assistant one. Yes, boots on the ground, literally. He went from agricultural assistant to administrator, and with almost 32 years under his belt, he has seen the highs, the hurdles, and the heart of the public service. So who's better for us to talk to on this occasion than him? A professional who knows the public service inside out.
What does excellence in service delivery for a sustainable future mean to me as the Chief Administrator in the Tobago House of Assembly? When we talk about service excellence, it's being able to deliver the service that people expect of us in such a way that a level of confidence and trust is engendered in the public that we serve, that people can believe that we are in fact contributing in a significant way to the improvement of their lives. And that is what service excellence is about. Meeting the expectations of the people of Tobago, and not only meeting it, but sometimes surpassing it, so that people can have that level of confidence and trust in the Tobago House of Assembly and the public service in delivering and meeting those needs. The THA has taken that bold stance of publicly and making themselves more accountable to the people of Tobago. And it is seen in the various approaches that we have been taking, one of which is our strategic development planning pathway, which is a planning approach that puts people at the center of everything that we do, and even in terms of our accountability and transparency in government. We have recently adopted a framework in the Tobago House of Assembly of a commitment for results, of a performance management system that speaks to not only saying what we are doing, but making it visible that all can see what we are doing. Looking back at the impact or impending impact of Hurricane Beryl in 2024, in fact, early July, looking at an impending hurricane threatening the people of Tobago, our property, our lives, and being able to see public officers come together and to work in that type of collaborative manner, to be able to see people respond in the way that we did, everyone coming together at the lowest level and being out there, communicating at the level of secretaries of divisions, calling in, making calls, officers, people responding on the ground, from the man with the chainsaw, the persons with the operators of equipment clearing roads, assisting people in getting into shelters. I felt proud. I saw divisions at work who understood a common vision, a common goal. Today, public officers are faced with many challenges that make service delivery sometimes a bit challenging. Public officers have been largely demotivated, working on salaries that go back as far as 2013. Many officers sometimes in circumstances, in buildings, offices that may not be up to the best and deserving of public officers. Resources can be challenging. We are in difficult economic times, and officers sometimes may find it difficult really to get those basic resources that are needed to carry out their jobs. So I believe we are at a time where we have, a melting pot of so many different generations in the workplace, and I don't see it as a problem. In fact, I welcome it. We are now looking at a new generation that has, grown up in an age of technology, who can bring so much smarter solutions to some of the challenges that we have in the public service. And so therefore, I say to most of you as young public servants, most public officers, that you should not see the public service as a place that has barriers, but rather as an opportunity to innovate and to introduce all that you have that we need into the public service. As we celebrate Public Service Week 2025, I would like to continue to throw out the challenge to every public officer in Tobago to be the best that you can be wherever you are. Doesn't matter whether you're a clerk one sitting in the accounts department, whether you're an officer who's on the field, whether you're someone sitting behind a kiosk. We all matter. Let's see ourselves as being part of a greater vision, of a greater public service that is poised and can continue to grow and to provide the services to the people of Tobago at a level that we can always be proud of.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the feature address. This will be delivered by Professor Dr. Prajapati Trivedi, former Secretary to the Government of India, Cabinet Secretariat, who is joining us virtually. Just to tell you a bit about Professor Dr. Trivedi, he's a global expert in public policy and performance management, currently serving as a distinguished professor at the School of Public Policy and Governance in India. He is also a visiting international fellow at the IBM Center for the Business of Government in Washington, D.C., and he has taught at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government for over 40 years. He has held several high-level positions, including Secretary to the Government of India in the Cabinet Secretariat. He's a former senior economist of the World Bank and an elected fellow of the National Academy of Public Administration in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Professor Dr. Trivedi, who is delivering the FITIA address.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me, Ms. Anne-Marie. Can everyone hear me? I can't hear, so you'll have to tell me I'm audible, then I will. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me start by thanking Dr. Faith Brebner, who was absolutely marvelous. I mean, I was inspired. So was I inspired by Mr. Carl Murray, as well as Mr. Belfont. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, many of you may have heard this story before, so with advance apologies if I'm repeating myself, but the only way to learn and also to teach is to go over the subject over and over again. So I'm here delighted absolutely because I've taught, for 50 years actually. I started teaching in 1974 at the university level, and I continue to do so. I'll be going to the Kennedy School next week. So it's a passion of mine, and I believe in its value. And I think the reason I'm here is not so much to give you a new set of ideas, new set of concepts, but really to answer your questions. We did go through a very intensive training program last year, as you recall, and many of you were, I'm sure, present. And this is a moment to sort of go over through it. And again, long years of teaching has convinced me the best way to learn is to repeat. And so many of the things I'll do is not just come up with new ideas, but sort of I'll do two things. First, I will try to review what we said. Second, I would add a few things because the title of our conversation today is to go beyond CFR. What does it mean, the Citizens Charter, the grievance redress mechanism, and many other topics, and then answer your questions. Where do you stand? What have been your struggles? And this is the way we will learn from each other. So allow me to sort of start with, not with the traditional, because you already are familiar with the concept, but with something that I may not have emphasized very much. When I joined the government of India, and I was asked to join not because of any reason, not because I applied, but in India, the second Administrative Reform Commission, we became independent in 1947, and there was the first Administrative Reform Commission, and then the second one, which submitted its report in 2008. And they had, by now India has become quite prosperous and had the budgetary resources to travel everywhere and find out the best. They came to the conclusion the best strategy for India to reform, for administrative reforms, would be to implement what they call performance agreements. So this was a recommendation of the Administrative Reform Commission, very distinguished Administrative Reform Commission. It had 13 reports, and this was part of one of the major reports on administrative reforms. And they said you must have a performance agreement. Now, performance agreement is what is CFR, Commitment for Results. It's also known as Results Framework Document, performance contract. But a rose is a rose is a rose. No matter what you call it, it remains a rose. And so therefore, it's the same concept, and we will visit that. But the interesting thing happened that we started implementing it in 2009. That's the year the government invited me. I was with the World Bank, and they asked me to come and join as a permanent secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat. And my job was Secretary Performance Management. And we implemented a version of CFR. It was called, we called it the Results Framework Document. And we came up after 1 year in 2010 with the results. But before we could announce the results of how the ministries had performed against the targets, our counterpart of Time magazine, the most popular magazine, came out with this issue, and I like to share it. Let me, with the help of the technicians there, let me try to see if I can share my screen, and then allow me, it shouldn't take too long. I should be able to share the screen. Am I able to, are you seeing the screen now which says India Today Underperforming Alliance? Miss Anne-Marie? I can't hear, so somebody has to tell me whether you can see. You can see, yeah, please, thank you. So you see, this is our Time magazine, and Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the Prime Minister, they called it Underperforming Alliance. And, you know, it was an alliance of multi-party, it wasn't the single-party government, so they called it an underperforming alliance. And they went on to give the rankings of all the ministers. These are all the cabinet ministers, and with the ministries you can read, I don't know if you can read it, I'm expanding it so you can see Ministry of Home Affairs, Finance, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Ministry of Rural Development and Ministry of Panchayati Raj, and you know, the usual Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So now this would be all right. This would be all right. It says lecture at public in 5 minutes. I don't know, let me dismiss this message on my screen. So this would be all right, journalists do this, but the thing was, at the very same day this came out, we were about to release, and I'm expanding it so you can see it again, we were about to announce the results for CFRs that we had done and how ministries had performed. And you can see our rankings all the way from 100 to, you know, we have 59 ministries and departments which had signed the CFR, and you can see how they had done. Now, this would be all right, except when we compared the two. The RFD, as you know, CFRs were called the Results Framework Document in India, and India Today, we found that the mean was different. And when you have two rankings, if you ask a statistician, how do you compare the two rankings? In statistics, there is something called the Spearman rank correlation. And when you use the Spearman rank correlation, it turned out to be 0.02. That means what the journalists were saying was not correlated with what we found. So I called the managing editor of that magazine and I said, look, you're a genius. I mean, I had to resign my job in the World Bank to come here and set up a complicated system of commitment for results and results framework document. But you seem to have the results already. How did you get to this thing? So he was very honest. He said, look, we did not do much. We just opened a website and we asked people to vote. So there was no scientific basis for this thing. It's a feeling of the people out there. So two things. I hope you get the point that the magazine admitted that there was no scientific, it was an opinion survey basically. And it was dramatically different from the reality. So it has several points that we must, learn a lesson from. Number one, that nature does not like vacuum. So if you are not going to have a system, nature will fill it up with something. And that's what, then if you don't like it, you'll call it yellow journalism or something. So it is better that we have our own system where we say, this is what we committed, this is what we did. So believe me, having this and having some criticism, which is always going to be there, is better than having no system, because then it's completely impressionistic and it is based on nothing. Number one. Second lesson that you derive is that you may do a CFR and the government may say we have a fabulous system, the international experts, the Commonwealth Secretariat and Professor Trivedi think that is fabulous, which it is. But what matters is, are you able to communicate this to the people of Tobago? Now, if you're not able to do it, no matter how good a system you have, it's not going to matter, and I'll come to that in a minute. So communication is very important. So first of all, you must have a much more rigorous system, otherwise nature does not like vacuum and it will be filled with yellow journalism. Second, even if you have a great system, there's no guarantee that people will get it. You need to have an effective communication strategy. Like the Public Service Day, I hope when you have the next Public Service Day, you will recognize people who have actually delivered what they promised. That's in short what we are talking about. There should be no gap between delivery and promise, promise and delivery. So if you promise something, if you deliver, that's basically the common sense behind it. And the rest is all a matter of details. So that would be my starting point. And that is why the title today, that going beyond CFR, because I think, and I say it not just because I'm speaking to an audience in Tobago, I say it because I really saw the commitment during the training program that we did last fall, that how beyond the call of duty you were all committed. And, you know, and I still have the great regret that I was speaking and I was not able to visit. We did it virtually, and again, I'm doing it virtually. Someday I visit to, I look forward to visiting Tobago and seeing the fabulous commitment that you have over there to the systems. And I salute you, and I'm absolutely thrilled and energized to do my best to make you a success. And hopefully you will win the United Nations Public Service Award on this thing, as Kenya did 15 years back. So that's really my starting point. So let's go back to some of the things, because I again want to start with evidence, because you're all familiar with the concept, and I'm here to answer questions and let us see what real problems you have. So let's have some discussion. I don't want to make it a one-way lecture, which you already have had enough of. So what is the evidence from India? We had this thing working from 2009 till 2014 or so. And in the 5 years, how did it happen? Let me take another area of going beyond the CFR. You see, CFRs is great. And then we, of course, this is something called grievance redress mechanism. Now, grievance redress mechanism, India has a very good system. It's called centralized public grievance redress model. I'm going to just hide this. I'm trying to hide this. You may not be able to see, but I have all these controls in front of me. They create confusion here. So, you know, many things that CFR can do, and there are things that it can't do. CFR, those of you who are familiar, and I have a feeling that all of you are familiar, feel free to ask a question. CFR is commitment for results. Now, you know, results, what if you do not deliver public service? You know, let's say you make the road, but you are rude to the people who are asking questions or who want to know about it. And if they have grievances, you know, people will have grievances. Now, how do you deal with grievances? That is going beyond CFR in some ways. You have to have systems to deal with grievances. Now, I'm happy to talk about it, and we can have a full session on it. We have a very fabulous software we have developed, which is used in many other states. India, as you know, has 28 states and 9 union territories, so they're used in states in different languages. It's called the Centralized Public Grievance Redress Mechanism. The essence of that is that any citizen of India can file a grievance in this system in any form, in any language, I mean, we are famous for having 32 major languages and how many dialects. So you can do it in any. And thanks to AI and technology, it gets translated and there's no problem. So you file a grievance, and I'm sure you have a system of that also, and then you have the government disposes it. It comes to a system. So when we started the system, you can see the receipts, which is the receival of grievances, was 50% higher than the disposal. So disposal was about 50% of the grievances that were filed were disposed of. So as the years went by, the grievances and the disposal became pretty much equal. So all grievances were being redressed. Now you may say, of course, grievances get redressed. How do you know that people are satisfied? In government, we can give an answer and call it a redress. But we had a quality indicator as well, where the person was asked at the end, are you satisfied? So there was a satisfaction index also for those who are thinking like this. So this is the kind of evidence that makes me makes me believe in the power of what gets measured gets done. The minute we started measuring grievance redress, grievances started getting redressed. So it is not that there was no system. There was a system, but people were not taking it seriously. And so you may ask, so how was it done through the CFR? And this is where I'm coming, the subtitle of this session, Beyond CFR. What we did was we actually included one indicator, which was called a mandatory indicator for all departments signing the CFR. They had to put grievance redress, a percentage of grievance redress as an indicator. So when we started monitoring that indicator, that how many receipts and disposals, what was the percentage of disposals compared to the receipts, lo and behold, the performance improved, and gradually, not only grievances, you can see the grievances were going up, then started coming down, and they became equal to the receipt. So this just is one piece of evidence that what gets measured gets done matters, and it is also the lesson from here is that you should not just include things that you do in the ministry, but there have to be certain things which are across all ministries, and we called it the mandatory indicators, that all ministries had to have this kind of an indicator. So grievance redress was one, and the other one was making the citizens' charter. And I'll come to that in a minute as well. But I don't know, Ms. Anne-Marie, do we have microphone for people to ask questions at some stage? Ms. Anne-Marie, do we have microphone for people to ask questions if they wish to? Well. And I take the answer to be yes. I hope people, you can listen. My sound is going through. Maybe the IT people can confirm that. Okay. All right. Then it's all right. So I will not expect people to because they may not be able, they may have questions, and I was making sure that if they don't have questions. So folks, we will have other occasions, you can send me your questions, and because when I'm speaking, I feel people may have questions, so that's all right. I will give you, and I'll anticipate your questions. If I can't, you have my email and my message, send me a message, we continue. This is not the end of the dialogue. In fact, I consider this to be an ongoing dialogue, and I so much look forward to coming and meeting you and seeing your CFRs and how you're doing. So it is in that spirit that I'm with you. So anyhow, this is the grievance redress mechanism thing. What we did was, this is how we put the mandatory indicators. You can say we called it mandatory performance indicators in RFD relating to CAG paras. This was yet another issue that we had. You have Controller and Auditor General, I'm sure. All governments have Controller and Auditor General. But the problem with Controller and Auditor General was, in our case, that, since I can't speak to you, I will presume you have a similar system because all Commonwealth countries have a Controller and Auditor General who do the audit, and they have audit paras or objections. When they find something wrong, we call it a para, an audit para in the government. So we found that people were not taking care of it. If you see here it says objective is ensuring compliance to financial accountability framework, which is the CAG's framework. Then we have timely submission of action taken notes on audit paras, correct? And we found that people were not taking it seriously. What happened was every permanent secretary would say, why should I get involved in this thing, and would kick the can down the road for the next permanent secretary who takes over to deal with it. And so the paras were growing. They were just growing over time. So in one of the meetings, the person who looks after this business is the Secretary of Finance in our government, who reports to the Parliament on what's going on with these paras. And he came to the meeting and told the Cabinet Secretary, sir, there's a crisis. I can't go to the Parliament. I get a dressing down that each time I go, the paras are increasing and nobody seems to be taking them seriously. The reason was there was no consequence. If, you just had to do nothing and you finish your tenure, and why get involved with paras and audit objections and answer and get further embroiled in defending or making comments? So people just chose to ignore. The minute we put it into the CFR, see what happened. See what happened. The paras that we had suddenly disappeared. From 2010 to 2014, there were 4,216. They were increasing every year. And the minute we put it in as a mandatory indicator in the CFR, it went down to 533. Again, it proves two things. What gets measured gets done. Till now, it was not being measured. Their performance did not include dealing with. The minute we said, no, you are the permanent secretary of this department, you are in charge, you have to respond, and it's your responsibility. They started taking it seriously and it reduced. So again, we have to include things which may not be necessarily about the ministry, but the whole of government. And that is what we mean by going beyond the CFR. CFR, in a sense, should not be limited to building roads or teaching or health, because that's what your ministry does. It must include certain things that cut across the ministries, because an effective government needs these things as much as building roads and keeping people healthy and supplying the water. So these are some of the examples. I have many other examples of the impact, but I shall, in the interest of time, leave it for the time being. But at some point I will, if there are any questions, I will be happy to go over through this thing. So allow me now to go back to this where we were, and I will start from very beginning now.
Professor Trivedi?
Yes?
Are you hearing us?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm very much.
All right, so we have a full house here, and we have the mics in the crowd, so persons would be able to ask questions as they feel fit.
Thank you so much.
So, right, so just a short announcement for anyone who is in the crowd. If you want to have a question, you could just put up your hand, and the mics will come to you. Okay? All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's absolutely fabulous. Because why don't you ask if somebody has, before I start on my next major segment. I mean, so far, let's ask people, and it'll be fabulous to get a feedback from and some questions which will give me the sense of the house, how the house is moving forward. So could you please see if there's anybody who raises hand? Please raise your hand, and then you can get the mic and give us a sense of the house, how it is doing.
Anyone has any questions? Professor
Yeah?
Trivedi is asking. Anybody? You could just raise your hand.
Yeah. If not, then we move on.
All right. All right. It seems we could continue for now.
All right, very good. So now I'm going to, okay. Let's just go through refresh people's memory that why we are here and what is the purpose of CFRs and performance management. As I have, and I'm more convinced than I was ever, that countries in the world can be divided according to their ability to implement policies and programs. You know, in the days of artificial intelligence, you can make a policy in half an hour. And I kid you not, I can give you examples of what I have done, and I strongly urge all of you to do your CFRs using artificial intelligence. I'll give you an example, which happened after our session on CFR, which we did last fall. I got a call from, as part of the Commonwealth effort, we are helping Barbados. In fact, Barbados, the Honorable Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, is a champion. She put CFR in her election manifesto, as I mentioned, some of you would recall. And not only that, she has now passed a law, and CFR is an official policy of Barbados. So if there's one country we should check is Barbados. So, they are the ones who now are moving forward with this policy in a way that you will not believe. I mean, they have, if you had to go on a country visit to see international experience, I would say Barbados would be one. And it's close by, it's in the Caribbean, so it shouldn't be very difficult. And we should really have more interaction between the two of you, and we should figure out. But anyhow, I got a call from the counterpart of Colleen and Miss Anne Marie from there, saying the finance minister wants to speak with you. And I sort of panicked. I said, why does the finance minister of Barbados want to speak with me? So it seems that he had some questions on the CFR. That's all. They told me, that he has some questions. And I figured he would be asking what kind of a CFR can the Ministry of Finance prepare. So guess what I did? Now, I have worked in many ministries, but not in Ministry of Finance. I've worked in public sector, public enterprises, cabinet secretariat in the government. I was economic advisor. So I have some idea, but finance is finance. So what I did was, before the meeting, I just went on artificial intelligence, and I said, look, for a small Caribbean country, if I'm the Minister of Finance and Ministry of Finance, what should be my objectives? And lo and behold, I got a set of objectives. Then I said, that's fabulous. Now, if these are my objectives for the Ministry of Finance in a small Caribbean island state, then what should be the actions I should take to achieve these results, these objectives? And lo and behold, artificial intelligence, AI Gemini threw up actions that, look, if you want to stabilize your currency, these are the things you need to do in Caribbean. Okay, it was not in US or in India. It was giving me context specific. Then I said, all right, these are my objectives. These are my actions that you are proposing, and I find them very reasonable. But how do I know that I'm making progress? How do I know what should be my success indicators? And believe it or not, it gave me my success indicators. Now I had all this material. I had 10 minutes or 15 minutes left for the meeting with the Minister of Finance. I said, look, can you put all this into a PowerPoint? And lo and behold, it put it in a PowerPoint. And 2 minutes before the meeting, I was ready with a PowerPoint on Ministry of Finance for Barbados. So when the minister came, he was very polite and was saying, Prof, Ministry of Finance, we do this, we do that. So I said, Your Excellency, let me share some thoughts on how what could be done in this area. And so I had this PowerPoint, wonderful, and I presented that, look, these could be the objectives of a Ministry of Finance. And if these are the objectives, then these could be the actions that one could take to achieve these objectives. And if we are taking these actions and your colleagues are taking this action, then how do you judge whether you are moving in the right direction and how far you have moved? For that, we could perhaps use these as success indicators. And after making the presentation for 10-15 minutes, I said, Excellency, what do you think? And I was completely surprised when he said, Prof, you're right on the money. And I said, my God, look at the power of artificial intelligence. I mean, I didn't know the Ministry of Finance in Barbados, etc. But so I would suggest one thing that you take out from this is try to use artificial intelligence to improve the quality of your CFR. Then you have you can ask, please check out from the experience of other countries and suggest for Tobago what could be my objectives for this ministry, given the problems in Tobago for solving for health, education, whatever roadways. And you will be surprised. At least I am surprised. And you don't need a fancy artificial system. What you need is the ability to ask questions. And permanent secretaries and distinguished secretaries like yourselves have that capacity. You have the experience to ask questions. Now, you may not have always all the right answers from the international experience, but that's what AI will do. So I would encourage you to improve the quality of your CFR. You should really subject it to artificial intelligence and ask questions, and don't feel, the worst that can happen is you don't like the answer, and it's okay, you give your answer, but at least you will not be stuck for ideas, and I think that's very important. Now let me go back to another very important theme. That the reason why we are doing, and some of this is repetitive, and I deliberately want to, because long years of teaching has taught me that messages should be repeated for them to sink in. And these ideas are not new, but they need to be repeated for us to get them. And this is a very fundamental idea that, we talk about digital divide, the education divide, the health divide, this divide or that divide internationally. But in my view, countries have only one divide, and that is the implementation divide. There are countries who do what they say, and there are countries who just keep saying and don't do it. Right? So CFR is one way to close the gap between what you say and what you do. This is just an instrument, and its ability to how you implement CFR and how the government implements it is going to be key to it. But I think what I have seen, you're in a fabulous position. You're going in the right direction, and I'm so optimistic that when we meet next time, we can quote you as an example of best practice. Now, again, no matter how good a document.
Hello.
And this happens with all the.
So, Professor.
Yes.
Right. I have a question. If I could.
No, very good.
Nice.
Please,
thank you so
I'll be
very
grateful.
much for sharing so far. For someone who has not heard about this CFR, because we have many of the persons here who are new to the CFR concept, we're not part of the training. We have persons from our Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, from the Water and Sewerage Authority, as well as all the divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly and our administrators, many of whom were not part of the training and now understanding the concept of what the Commitment for Results framework. So my question is, could you in a very simplified way, say to the participants here, what is the CFR and what is the real value of the commitment for results framework
Absolutely.
into the public sector?
Thank you very much. I'm so grateful for you to have said that, because I was feeling that everybody is familiar, so was trying to, I presume that everybody knows CFR, because some of the leaders mentioned it as if everybody is familiar, but you're absolutely right, and therefore I have no problem repeating it. The CFR, and I will go through it more systematically and give you a full view of it. So maybe we should do that. But just since you have asked the question, the straight answer is CFR stands for Commitment for Results, and it's a basic document. And the reason why we have CFR is that enormous amount of research has told us that what gets measured gets done. Now, if you simply say you have good intentions of doing something, that's not, in fact, we do not have a bottom line. The difference between public and private sector is, in private sector, when company says that we have made $300 million profit, everybody agrees, because there is a way of calculating the bottom line. Everybody agrees that profit is the bottom line. Everything that you do translates ultimately into profit, right? So therefore, and the profit is calculated not by following your own rules, but there are generally accepted accounting principles. And every chartered accountant follows that and comes to the bottom line. You cannot define working capital as you like. You have to, there's a particular definition of that. And there's a methodology called generally accepted accounting principles, which is certified by an international body. Everybody follows that principle and you come to a bottom line. Now, you don't release your results, even though you have the bottom line, till it is audited by an external auditor. And therefore, you get, once the external auditor is satisfied that these results are indeed consistent with the generally accepted accounting principle, then they are released to the public. And I have not seen anyone criticize, oh, these numbers are fudged and this. The last time it happened, you remember Enron and Arthur and Anderson, one of the big 7 accounting firms, which went bankrupt because they tried to cook the books. So cooking the books is the biggest crime in private sector. Because if you, so therefore, the point is that when you ask 5 people about a private sector company, they will all come to the same conclusion because they're using generally accepted accounting principles. But when it comes to government, you ask 5 people, how is this government department doing? They'll come to 5 different conclusions, good, bad, or ugly, depending on what they're looking at. There is no generally accepted framework. So in the last few years, this has been a major achievement of the Commonwealth Secretariat under the leadership of the then Secretary General, Baroness Scotland, Patricia Scotland, that the 56 countries of the Commonwealth, the heads of the public service, which is the cabinet secretary in most countries, they agreed that this is how we will calculate the bottom line of a government department. And that instrument is called Commitment for Results. For instance, let me see if I can show you a little bit more on that front. The document is not here with me, but I will get it in. Well, I don't have the GAP document, but I think most of your colleagues have. If you send me, everybody can get an electronic copy of Now there is a consensus among all the experts in public sectors, at least in the Commonwealth countries, 56 countries. All the heads of the governments have accepted it. In Samoa, when they had the CHOGM last time, that this will be the framework we will use. So CFR is a methodology for those who don't know. This is commitment for results, and it has the steps that I shall in a minute outline for you. Let's see if I can get the steps. We are going to in the interest of time, I'm trying to be selective and here. To answer your question specifically, these are the steps involved in doing a CFR. It is known as Performance Agreement Results Framework. These are all synonymous names for the CFR. The first step, since you asked, and I think most of the people in the audience who have not attended the training program may be wondering what is a CFR, and therefore it's an excellent question, and I thank you for that. The first step is you must have success indicator. This is the stylized version of the key features of what a CFR is. That you must not just say you will do this, but you must have an indicator to measure what you're going to do, right? For instance, percentage increase in number of primary healthcare centers, percentage increase in number of people with this thing. Now, you may say that we do this in government. Of course, we have indicators. You think we don't have measures? And I would say you're absolutely right. The difference is that in 99% of the countries where I do this thing and I speak to a lot of people, they just have a list of things to do. So at the end, suppose your boss tells you you have to do 12 things, which we are supposed to do as part of your annual performance report or something, 12 things to do. Now, in those 12 things, you go at the end of the year and you tell the boss, Mr. Secretary, you had asked me to do 12 things and I have been able to do 9 out of 12 things. Will it be good performance or bad performance? I submit to you, it depends. Because the 3 things that you didn't do were the most important things. Then you did all the dinky little stuff. And therefore, the very important missing link in our current way of assessing departments is giving weights. And so the second thing is weights. The second key feature of CFR is weights. Prioritizing. And believe me, having worked with many countries, including in India for 5 years, with all 80 departments here, many permanent secretaries said this was the most important contribution of CFR. It clarified their mind, what is my priority, where everything is not equally important. And it's not that it should be in your mind, it should be explicit, so all your subordinates know your priority, the bosses agree, yes, this is our joint priority, so it is not your personal preference or priority, it is the public. In the public interest, the country's priorities are such. So therefore, I have, of course, taken a stylized fact of just 3 indicators. This is just to illustrate the steps involved. So a CFR, this is what I'm trying to explain to you is the heart of CFR. It must have indicators, which of course we do even in now. You don't need a CFR. The new thing that CFR adds is prioritization. Because if you don't have prioritization, I submit to you, you can't evaluate anything. And therefore, at the end, you're clueless. And again, the performance lies in the eyes of the beholder. You can say, well, you didn't do this. This is very important. Whether it's important or less important should be agreed ex ante, at the beginning of the year, not at the end of the year. That's the message. Now, many countries may say, all right, we have priorities. Another fatal flaw of the current evaluation systems prior to the CFR introduction is that we give a single point target. We will say that the Minister for Roads will tell the Permanent Secretary that your target is 700 kilometers of road this year. Now the Secretary goes to the Minister at the end of the year and says, sir, you had asked me to make 700 kilometers of road, but I made 650 kilometers of roads. I was able to make 650, shortfall of 50 kilometers. How are we to judge that? How are we to judge that person's performance? Well, I submit if the minister likes the secretary, he would say, that's close enough, old chap, let's go and have a beer or orange juice, whatever. But if the secretary does not like, and the minister does not like the permanent secretary, he'll say, Mr. Secretary, you do work, but I'm afraid you never achieve targets. And I can't, I'd like to support you, I can't support you. So, it becomes subjective. And that is the bane of our public sector subjectivity. And that's why people stop performing and they say, look, just keep your boss happy, at the end it's all subjective. So CFR tries to break that logjam and says, look, to break the subjectivity, we must know your priorities. So you don't tell, so I don't, whatever I achieve, you say that was low priority. Ex post, ex ante, before the fact, you must tell me what you consider as priority so I can focus and get the important things done first. Second thing is, I must know what you consider excellent and what you consider poor. This is the criteria value selection. And this then is, again, the heart of CFR, that you have to have a 5-point scale. It couldn't be a 3-point, 7-point scale, but you've got to have a scale. You must tell the subordinate that what you consider excellent and what you consider poor. So when you give this, this really is the heart of a CFR, the stylized version I'm presenting, just to give you the concept. And this is done at the beginning of the year, right? This is done at the beginning of the year. Now at the end of the year, these 3 steps are taken. You do the criteria selection, where you make sure it is fair to the officials, fair to the country, and it's negotiated freely. You specify your priorities. The technical word is criteria value, criteria weight, and then you specify the deviation, what constitutes excellent, what constitutes poor performance. At the end of the year, the last step is done, which is performance evaluation. And let's see the performance evaluation. So you've agreed to this as, oops. Yeah. Are you able to see the screen now? Okay, thank you. It has disappeared from my I don't know. I can see the screen there, but I'm not able to. Allow me to just get this screen here. Yeah. Oops. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing the screen as I am seeing it, and I got a glimpse of the screen that the audience is seeing, and I'm seeing it. So now, at the end of the year, what happens? Step 4 in CFR. Somebody asked, what is a CFR? And it's a fair question. This was the achievement. Now you see the difference. When you know the achievement is 15, you know exactly what it is between 10 and 20. So it's neither 70 nor 80. So what you will give 15 is 75, because it is between 10 and 20. 18 is exactly under 90. So 18 means you achieve 90% of what you committed. 600 is beyond what you said as excellent. So how much would you give? Well, in government, exceeding your target is not a good thing, because our resources are limited, and there's a reason why you were given this target. So the maximum you can get is excellent. You can't get 1000% just by doing one thing. The maximum is 100%. So therefore, the raw score for each one of this, and please we should have the mic available if somebody wants to ask a question, because this is the essence of CFR methodology, that 15 gives you 75% because it is neither 70 or 80, it is in between the two. 18 is exactly under 90, so you get 90%, and 600 gives you 100%. Even though it is more than 100%, the maximum you can get is 100%. Now, once you have the raw score, you cannot add up this because this is going to be more than 100. These are not of equal weights. So you get weighted raw score, which is you multiply the raw score with the weight. So you have 75 multiplied by 0.5 gives you 37.5. 90 multiplied by 0.3 gives you 27%. This gives you 20%. When you add the weighted, you get the composite score of 84.5. Now, this is the revolution that CFR is bringing. It will not depend anymore on in the eyes of the beholder, but everyone will know exactly how they performed. It will be fair because they were told what the target and how the deviations will be measured. And this is the essential revolution, because if the performance lies in the eyes of the boss, then it becomes subjective, and that has been the bane of our bureaucracy all over the world, I would say. And so this is the new thing in CFR. Let me pause here for people to ask questions for those who have not seen this before, and I thank the person who pointed out that many of you have not seen this before, so this may be a new concept for you. So please let me feel free to ask questions. I would want to answer those questions. So may we have the questions, please?
All right, so anyone who has questions, you could just indicate, raise your hands. We have persons around with the mics.
Thank you. Yeah, anybody? If not, then we can continue.
All right,
Okay,
so we have...
so I'll ask another question.
Yeah,
So, Professor, in view of all that you have said, I know that this is a new system for us. We are transitioning, and you have been experiencing this in several countries, assisting them with implementing the commitment for results framework. For an organization, government agency, tell us about the transitioning, because we're talking about beyond the CFR. How do we, what is the expectation we should have? What are maybe some things that we can do to ease the transition to this new approach?
Right. I think this, first, and thank you for the question. It's really the right question, I would say, because people feel that it's going to be very complicated. It actually simplifies your life, because in the absence of this, everything becomes so bulky, and we have huge quantity of monitoring and evaluation, but the quality is weak. Monitoring and evaluation is a different ballgame, and evaluation is a different ballgame. We don't have to go through too much detail of how this is being achieved, go through each parameter. All you're saying is, just like in any company.
Professor, I want to pause you because I'm getting a very important question here from the floor, which should probably be asked before you deal with the transitioning. So I want to just stick a pin on the transitioning and allow one of our administrators to ask the question in relation to the raw score.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor, my question is, with the composite weighted raw score of 84.5 on screen, when we go to the target and the criteria results, 80% represents good and 90% represents very good. So a score of 84.5, where would that fall in the ranking?
It will fall exactly where it is. It will fall 84.4, and so you will be ahead of somebody who has got 80. So you've got 80.4. You'll be ahead, and you'll both could be in the same range of being very good or excellent. You could both be in the same range. If you can see that 80 and 90 is good and very good. So it is, you're exactly, the measurement should be done by numbers, and because the range of excellent and very good is broad. Between 90 to 100, everything is between very good and excellent. Now, 84.5 will be ahead of somebody who gets only 80. So you're saying that you achieved 84.5% of your commitments. You made commitments, you achieved 84.5. That's what it means. And therefore, you don't have to, and where it lies in this thing, it's in between, clearly 85 would be in between good and very good. So this is 84.5 in my view is more in the good category rather than in the very good category, because 85 is the middle line.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Professor.
how I would, yeah, that's how I would look at it. Any other question, please?
Okay, so we're taking from that, and I'm hearing somebody saying it, so I'll ask them to give the comment that there's no subjectivity in this. So,
yeah.
I was just simply saying the good, very good, excellent is still a bit subjective in my view. So I agree with it, with what he was saying, that using numbers.
Sorry, I don't think that the professor is hearing.
I say,
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I heard that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying. Using.
okay, Professor.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree that, the categories you don't focus on, you focus on the numbers. So when the result is announced, it's announced as 84.5. So you're ahead of the person who gets only 84. You're ahead. But you could both be in the good category, but you have to, this number, so it's a range that, it's not like a precise number. The whole range is, 80. And so the middle point is 85. If you are from 85 to 75, I suppose you're good, right? So if you want to know, that's how you would be classified.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So we can transition back to making the transition from where we are now, how we are operating. What are some key things that we should take into consideration to make that a smooth transition?
Right. So if you recall, the title that I have today is Going Beyond the CFR. So clearly, I'm glad that we are discussing CFR, because to go beyond the CFR, people must know what is CFR. And as you quite rightly pointed out, that many people were not in the training, so they may not know what the CFR really stands for and what is. So I'm glad that we are going. This is the heart of CFR. This is the heart of CFR methodology. This is how it improves upon totally subjective approach that we have, where there are no priorities. So you decide the priority. If you do well, you say this is important, but priorities should be decided ex ante, before the beginning of the year. Similarly, what constitutes excellent and what constitutes poor should be decided at the beginning of the year, not at the end of the year. At the end of the year, just like an accountant, it's all mechanical. You come to a very precise calculation, 84.5, and that you can compare yourself with the others. You are ahead of somebody who gets 70. But you are behind somebody who gets 90. But you could be in a broad range of excellence. You could be in a broad range of very good, because the ranges are broad. But you have a precise score, and as well as, just like in college and universities we have, there's a whole range for what is considered to be grade A, B, C, D. It's not a point, it's a range. And in this range, you are A. So that's how this is. And this has been tried and tested. There is no other better methodology I have come across. In fact, this was far ahead of Norton and Kaplan in the Harvard Business School, who had this methodology called the balanced scorecard. Ultimately, they also added weights, and it became the same thing. So in a sense, this is the counterpart for the governments to not say that we do important things, but we must specify how important. Not say that we will do the best, but you must say that, look, the excellence will be this and poor performance will be this. Not that anything that I do should be acceptable. So this is how you do this thing. Now the lecture this morning that we have is going beyond CFR, right? But as I at the risk of repeating myself, I'm very happy that we are going through the basics, and I will happy to do this again, long distance, individually, department wise. So do not think this is the last opportunity. But the important thing we want to note is, how do you go beyond CFR? Actually, it's not going beyond CFR. It is going beyond the things that the department does individually. There are certain things which are important for the whole of government. One of them is having a client service charter. This became very popular. They were called citizens charters, and they became very popular in John Major, who was the Prime Minister of Britain. They introduced public service agreements and citizens charter. And the name citizens charter was made popular by John Major when he was the Prime Minister. And he put citizens charter for buses, for service, every kind of public service. He said we must have a charter. He said when he didn't come from a very wealthy background, and he said we poor people had no access, and we didn't know what the quality of service we can expect from government. So whatever we had to take it. So he turned it around, and of course, that thing has gone quite far now, and I'm happy to talk about it, but client charters and grievance redress mechanism, innovation in government. Now, you can't say that innovation in government will happen on its own. Believe me, innovation also in Toyota, and if you study, and I have a book on this thing, we must not say that you innovate. You must define what is innovation. Does it mean doing things faster, cheaper, better? Which one is innovation? Or you can say, if I do 2% of cost cutting, is that innovation? So we have to define that, and it can be done. My short message is that we must not say that in addition to CFR, we are going to do innovation, we are going to do anti-corruption, we are going to do this. Then you will create, again, multiple yardsticks and create confusion, and we'll be back to square one. We have a CFR format. We can easily, as I have shown in other countries they have done, you can include citizens charter in the CFR. It can be one of your success indicators. Your innovation can be, and corruption can be, many of these things. In fact, you need a platform like the CFR to implement other higher level administrative reforms. Once you start measuring the basic performance, you can begin to include innovation, anti-corruption, e-government and e-office. CFR is a powerful tool to get many things done. So in addition to criteria which are specific to a particular ministry, you can have whole of government criteria, which means that they cut across ministries. So I could go on each one of them in greater details because we've done, but the time would not permit me to go. But think of it at a broad level right now, and we can have a session. We'll request, Ms. Colleen Galazzi also of Trinidad and Tobago. We can have a session on each one of them separately, but they should be part of CFR. They should not be individual, so that 100% should include your citizens charter, grievance redress mechanism, anti-corruption efforts, and innovation. They should all be included in the CFR. They're called mandatory indicators. They cut across all departments. They have no choice. Everybody, but we have to figure out what's a sensible indicator for innovation, what are sensible indicators for anti-corruption efforts. But clearly, there is no doubt in all my 40, 50 years of teaching that what gets measured gets done. So you simply cannot say that we should innovate. You have to define what is innovation. It can't be that innovation lies in the eyes of the beholder. I do something little different and I call this innovation. No, you must, and then it's doable. We have done this, and we can have a session on this. Let me pause and take a few more questions, because I find that getting questions allows me to get a better handle on what your interest would be. So can we open the floor and see if anybody has any other question connected to this?
All right, so questions are open once again. Anyone?
Okay, we have a question.
Okay.
This is Galaxy here.
All right, so we have
Professor,
one.
I noticed that
Yes.
you try the mandatory indicators. So basically, any particular financial year or period, government can decide those mandatory indicators can change over a period of time, I'm gathering as well. And
Absolutely.
also, remember when you showed us Kenya, I remember Kenya having quite a series of different indicators, and I guess that's what was important or key to the government at that point in time, why it is it would have chose those indicators. Yes? Okay.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right, that mandatory indicators are not forever. I mean, you introduce them, and once that problem is solved, you can use, because you have limited number of points. You can't just make everything mandatory. There should be modest, and you should have a methodology for doing this. So what we did was we made mandatory indicator that every department had to have what we called citizens charter, and this was very, very important. Let me see if I can get a citizens charter on the screen. Allow me to share the screen.
Professor, so basically this it can be used when government has wicked problems that seem that they don't want to go away. I guess this is what a tool or an approach you can use to assist.
Well, it's a whole of government approach. Many things require, they're not individual for any department. It's nothing to do with health, education. It has to do across. So, you have to, whoever your client, whether it is in education or health or road, you must have a client charter. So I hope you can see on your screen, Colleen, you can see the citizens charter example.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm happy to send everybody. This is Ministry of Civil Aviation, and the Citizens Charter, you can see what it has. What it has is, it says what the first column is our services and transaction. What are your services that you provide? And then how you measure your performance in this area. And what are your service standards? How many days? And in the next page, you will find that it says, where can you report this thing if, where do you go for redress if it is not done in 7 days? CP grams is another. So the point I'm making is what matters for citizens is how we deal with them, the interface with them. They don't care about the roads you're making, but, if you don't deal with them in a proper way, etc. So Citizens Charter is a very important complement of CFR. It's complementary and it should be part, but it's something that you can introduce in the second year, because in the first year you have so many other things to do. And similarly, the grievance redress mechanism. And these things are very simple now, and the technologies are available, the softwares are available for doing all this. And so once you do the basic CFR for your own department, this can be just a mandatory indicator and you can help. Another very important thing that we have done, and the government of India has now achieved, in fact, when I started, we had just started it. It was a mandatory indicator in all the CFRs in India. It was introduction of e-office, to avoid the paperwork. And now all our work in the government of India is done on e-office. When the mail comes, it's scanned and is put up on the system. The files move electronically, so you know where the file is, who's holding on, where, what to do. So, and all those softwares are available to countries free of cost, because this is called GovTech. And most countries, including India, just share their software free of cost because they're not commercial enterprises. But these are step by step. But if you don't have a good CFR, let's be honest, you have to do the business of your department first. You have to build the roads, you have to take care of the children's education or health, etc. And then you add these mandatory indicators as you want to expand and make sure that all people are looking after services and innovation and anti-corruption efforts. So that is an addition, but it's not a substitute for CFR. It's a complement. You add to it. And I think it should be done in step by step. And the first thing is you have a good CFR, and then with training, consensus, because each country will have to define its own way of doing this thing. But the technology exists, and I would suggest, just like for doing the CFR, we have a software which is available free of cost to Commonwealth countries. Smart. Similarly, other softwares are available free of cost, and one should not reinvent the wheel. Take that and see, because our problems are similar across the Commonwealth countries. Let me pause here, but thanks for asking that question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation.
Good afternoon.
Thus far. From what I gather, I came in a bit late, and what I'm wondering about is our ability to customize the things that would be important to us in Tobago, and how it is reported and available to the general public to see online. So the different categories that may be important to the public as opposed to the THA in our internal areas. How do we decide what is going to be placed for public view, how the measurements are taken? Because what I've seen is a numerical system, and how often those ratings, are we able to have a continual tabulation with, let's say, quarterly reporting that would allow for comparison between the different units of the THA to know what changes may be needed and how soon they can be effected? I think that's critical in the success of this program. So I'm just asking.
Thank you. Excellent question. And there are 2-3 questions in it. First is the frequency. And second is what should be in the public domain versus the government domain. So let's talk about frequency. We have to make a distinction between monitoring and evaluation. M&E is the job of the ministry, and they should do on a daily basis, monthly basis, depends on the energy and the requirement of the department, but that's an internal function. Government of Trinidad and Tobago can have broad guidelines, but that's internal to you, monitoring. But evaluation is only once a year. It can't be very frequently. Max twice a year, a 6-monthly review, and then a final review. Because if you evaluate too frequently, you create a huge burden on the ministries. So evaluation is certainly not more than 2 times, one 6 months and then 12 months. But monitoring and evaluation, which is the job of the management of the department concerned, should be at least monthly, and depending on what the nature of the internal things are, some could be even more frequently. But that's an internal monitoring and evaluation to make sure that you're on target, you're achieving your things. Then that is understandable. But external evaluation should not be done too frequently. That is the lessons of experience, that if you start doing this, then it creates a fatigue for the departments, because they're always reporting. But the good news is that if you do it electronically, then there is no burden of reporting. Then people don't have to ask for a report. They can just go and check. So if you put your results on a daily basis or a monthly basis, every month you enter the achievements, where you are, then the chief secretary or the chief administrator or the permanent secretary or the prime minister simply have to just say, today you have achieved 50% of your targets, and that's fine. And I think too frequent an evaluation is not a good idea. That's the basic thing. And it depends, you have to distinguish between monitoring and evaluation and final evaluation. The last one, video for the audience. My video is not visible. I don't know which one. Now is it all right? I got a message. Colleen, you can see me?
Yes, I can see you, Prof.
All right. Thank you. So I think then we are all right. I got a message that.
Yeah, just saw that
Not
message
seen.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, now the next question is, what should be put on in the public domain? That was the second part of the question. The answer is, believe me, like honesty, like many things, there's no such thing as partial. You can't put part of the CFR in the domain. In fact, the CFR process is not concluded till all CFRs are put on the website of the ministry. You know, we are in the public business. What is there to hide? You're saying this is my commitment for results. Put it in the website. If you don't, at least this was our policy in India, that unless it was uploaded on the ministry's website, we didn't consider the process complete. That was the completion of the process. And in the days of, right to information and all sorts of things, I think hiding this is not, in fact, one should go a step beyond. At the beginning of the year, for the process to be completed or declared to be completed, the commitment for results should be put on the website of the ministry. And at the end of the year, once you have the results and they have been audited and finalized by the cabinet, they should be put to the parliament because we do put an annual report. You must have the same system like most Commonwealth countries have, at least I am familiar with many Commonwealth countries where every department has to present an annual report to the parliament. And in that annual report, people give lots of pictures and all kind of description is a waste of paper. I mean, this is really just a publicity document. So what we did was, and it was very well received by the parliamentarians, we said, this is our commitment for results, this is our achievement, and we are presenting it to you, and that's it. I mean, it should be like an annual report of a company where they put the annual statements, the bottom line, that they say that this was the profit we made this year. So the CFR should say that this is what our composite score was and let the parliamentarians know that this is what you did and you are asking for more resources to improve your performance or whatever else needs to be done. So sorry, a long answer to that question, what should be in the public domain? First, you should put the CFR, and then at the end of the year, the results, please put it in the Parliament's domain so that there is no hiding of anything. Right. Now, so I think that sort of takes it. I'm reaching the end of my time, so I would like to take a few questions, but let me say a few more things about what needs to be done in addition to when you start a system, one should not go and do all these things. This has to be done step by step because otherwise the system gets overwhelmed when you start with too many things. First, a good CFR itself would be a major achievement. And then in a year or so, when you have stabilized, you should start implementing Citizens Charter and other initiatives which should be a mandatory indicator across all this thing. And the last and the final thing that I want to mention is innovation. You see, sometimes there is a criticism made that if you make it too mechanical and then innovation will be harmed. No, innovation in private sector, innovation is not harmed because they have a bottom line and they have accounts. Nothing interferes with innovation. So that argument is just not true. The point is, in private sector, innovation has a payoff, and therefore everybody knows what innovation means. It means that you do things better, faster, cheaper. That's how innovation comes about. You do something better, you do it faster, you do it cheaper, or you do it in a completely new way. You achieve your objective by using a new way, a completely new way of achieving your objective. So in the government, the same thing applies. And we have defined, we had a world international conference on innovation in government. We said, define innovation in government. You should not just call anything innovation. There has to be standards that, look, if you're doing something faster, how much faster will be innovation? If I do a little faster, will you call it innovation? Then everybody will say, I'm very innovative. No, you have to say, if you do something 25% faster, we'll call it innovation. If you cut your cost, you produce the same thing and you deliver the same services and you deliver them 30% cheaper, that would be some serious innovation. But a little bit of this thing is cost saving, etc., is not innovation. Or you're doing a completely new way of addressing the issues of public service, that would be innovation. So I think we should take innovation a bit seriously and not use the word innovation lightly for the small little change and you say, I'm innovative. No, you're not innovative, you're simply being slightly more efficient. Innovation is a serious word and it should be taken seriously, and it should be done consciously, and it should be part of a CFR policy ultimately to do it, but not do it everything in the first year. That is very important. You must lay the base and then start building gradually on top of it. But the bane of the difference between public and private sector is just that at the end of the year, the performance of public sector lies in the eyes of the beholder. And that has to change, and CFR is the only mechanism that I know which changes that. And that's why it is many countries are using across the Commonwealth, and that's why the Secretariat was so gung-ho about it. So I'm going to take a pause because I could go on if there are any questions. Happy to answer, but I know I have reached my time limit that was given to me, and hopefully are there any other final questions, and we can take that, and then otherwise thank
all right,
everyone.
So any final questions before Professor Trivedi takes his leave? Anyone? Do you have a question here? No?
Okay.
Everyone is okay? Well, Professor Trivedi, it seems as though your presentation was extremely thorough, so it was self-explanatory. That's probably why it has no questions.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Well, thanks. And that's what we'll believe. Yeah.
And you are hearing the voice of Ryan McCool. For those watching online and those in the audience, Ryan McCool is the name. Just to let you know that Ms. Chambers, I'm taking over for Ms. Chambers. Her voice didn't just get deep shortly over time, all right? So on behalf of everyone who tuned in to Tobago House of Assembly and those of us here in Tobago and those looking online, we really want to thank you for such a sterling presentation and for giving us examples of the variables that could be measurable so that we can have greater performance appraisals of what we do here in the public sector. So from everyone, I think that you could give the professor a hearty round of applause for his contribution. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Professor Prajapati Trivedi, the former Secretary of the Government of India Cabinet Secretariat, and this was a wonderful forum in terms of beyond the CFR, building an effective, accountable, citizen-focused public sector. And I'm sure that you all enjoyed that session there, yeah? So another round of applause for that one more time. So thanks again, Professor. Yeah, and
thank you.
So folks, as I said, I will be taking over for Ms. Chambers, and I'll just be steering you through the afternoon session. And just to give you a little heads up of what we're going to have, we're going to have a little plenary session on Q&A, and we're also going to have a nice little panel discussion. It's going to be led by our Policy Director for Performance Management, Ms. Anne-Marie Digazon, and she will be chatting to a panel of professionals, persons within the public sector that hold some notable seats, and just to give you those names, we have Ms. Colleen Galazi, I hope I pronounced that right, as the Executive Director of Modernization and Service. We are an improvement. We also have Mr. Anselm Richards, the Chief Technical Officer, Mr. Keegan Denoon, who is a Program Coordinator, And last but not least, we have our Councillor Tashia Boris, the Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation. Just want to thank you all for being here for this morning segment. I hope that it was very informative and in some ways inspirational to let us get up and do, a little bit better than we did yesterday, because we have our responsibilities. And of course, taking from what the professor said, probably we could implement it into our respective responsibilities, whether it's the divisions or agencies. It's easy, it's measurable, and you could always hold yourself to account and always wait for somebody to expect better of you. You always expect better of yourself, and that's basically where we're going. Right? So at this point in time, I know that you've been here for a while. It's lunchtime. Just to let you all know that. Right. So, as I said, it's lunchtime, and meals have been provided for everyone. Just give us about 5 minutes. They're setting it up right now. So what you would be able to do is that you would be able to go through the curtains, and you can have your selections of meals. I don't have the menu in front of me. You would have to go and find out for yourselves, right? And we have some house rules. Of course, eating in the auditorium is off limits, so you could probably come back right to your tables and have your meals. Again, eating up in the auditorium, eating and drinking is prohibited. So hope you all have your meals, and hope you all stay for the remainder of the afternoon sessions, yeah? And thank you so much.